How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel and welcome to my review of Rebel Ridge. The film tells the story of an ex-Marine that grapples his way through a web of small-town corruption when an attempt to post bail for his cousin escalates into a violent standoff with the local police chief. Now, the film is written and directed by Jeremy Soliner and stars Aaron Pierce, Don Johnson, and Anna Sophia Robbs. And I went into this movie really not knowing anything about this movie. I've just seen it be the talk of the town on Twitter. A lot of people calling it the best film of the year. Some people really blown away by this movie. A lot of people calling it the Netflix John Rambo. So I went into this movie really not had known anything about it. What it really wasn't on my radar until this weekend. So does this movie live up to the hype, or is it just overhyped? Now, starting off with the positives for this movie, it is a star vehicle for Aaron Pierce. I absolutely loved him in this movie. If there's one thing that really lives up to the hype, that is the performance of Aaron Pierce. His voice is so calm and soothing that when he turns that switch into revenge mode, it comes off as a little bit more threatening, and so you know when things are going to get down to business and when things are going to be serious. Don Johnson is also great in this movie as a police chief. There is something menacing about his voice, and when he comes face to face with Aaron Pierce's Terry, that is where a lot of the heart-stopping moments for the movie were actually done pretty well, because you have this really small contained story, a very personal story about a guy just trying to get his cousin out of jail until things go unexpected and things start taking a turn for the worse. That is where the movie really had my attention and really had my curiosity, because I wanted to see where this movie was going to go. I wanted to see what the outcome of the story was going to be. And I really love small contained stories like these, because they don't have to be overly bombastic. They don't have to have these really big set pieces. Just have a really small contained story, kind of like the first Rambo movie, where you have this guy coming back from war and things aren't going the way that he thinks it's going. So on a personal level, I think it's done pretty well. There was never a weak link when it came down to the performances, and this was my first Jeremy Soliner movie. I have never seen anything that he's ever done, but I think some of the direction that he took this movie were compelling, and it really does leave you at the edge of your seat. However, this movie is about 2 hours and 11 minutes, and it does feel like it's stretching it out a little bit further than it actually needs to, mostly because I felt like sometimes the pacing for this movie really dragged for me, and I wasn't really as invested as probably a lot of people were probably invested in this movie. So that is kind of where a little bit of my disappointment really came from, because I was really hoping that from the moment this movie began to the time that we get to the climax, we would be able to have this really heart-pounding thriller from beginning to end that leaves you breathless and at the edge of your seat. And at times it does really lose your attention from what the gravity of the situation is, because we're going from places to places, we're meeting different characters, we're trying to get this character from point A to point B, mostly because you kind of feel where you're going with this character. You kind of want to be behind this mission. You get why he's going after the police chief and everybody in the department, but at times it just really does feel like it's just stretching it out a little bit further than it actually needs to. And I just didn't come out loving it as much as everybody else did, mostly because of the pacing of this movie. There are times where I was just left bored and uninterested in what was actually going on. So a lot of the pacing in here really didn't work for me, and the ending, the way that it just ends anticlimactically, wasn't for me. I was waiting for something big to happen, and it has its moments where you're trying to figure out where the direction of this ending is going to be going and how it's going to be resolved. Just the way that it just ended just wasn't for me. There are moments where you can see where the direction of this movie is going to be headed. Just for me, I just didn't love it as much as a lot of people. It's a really decent watch. I really enjoyed it. There are some great moments of tension. There are some great moments where you kind of do feel like you want to be at the edge of your seat. Just didn't have a lot of those moments here for me. Cut it down about maybe 20 minutes shorter, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more than I actually did. But overall, I'm going to go ahead and give Rebel Ridge a 7 out of 10. But those are my thoughts on Rebel Ridge. Have you guys checked it out? Are you one of the people that absolutely love this movie? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys for the next video.